intellectual property that's good across different mediums, and we will focus on games because that's our passion. So I'm Julia Palatovska. I'm a co-founder of Dorian, and it's my life's work to enable more people to make games and to let your fans be active participants in your worlds, to enjoy it not passively but also be part of the story. And we will talk about why this matters and why this matters to you all. So on Dorian, you can easily turn any linear story or comic into an interactive game, and you can do so very easily, very fast, and without any coding. And these creators can attest to it. So far, we've had over 8,000 creators who made their games and released them on Dorian. All of these creators, majority of these creators, made their Dorian game for the first time. They made over 10,000 episodic games, and our community is extremely inclusive. So people are coming in the games from all walks of life, and they have been traditionally very underrepresented in the games industry. And what it means is that they can tell stories and share games that were not shared before and are unique. So my first question to you, I think, let's start with introductions. And what brought you to games? What did you do before? Maybe start from Baby.
Hi, my name is Baby, like actually Baby, and I've always wanted to make comic books, and it's really hard to build an audience like from scratch, but I found through Dorian it's easier to build up an audience because the games are easy to make. Like with comics you have to do like all the different angles, you have to do the backgrounds and stuff, but with this app you can just do like sprites and stuff. And then I have my writer, Abby.
Yes, hello, I am Abby, I am the writer. We worked together on Dorian and have worked together in comics before, but I think it's just much more interesting as a medium compared to writing sort of normally. It's a lot of exposition, there's a lot of different ways to write, and so it's a new kind of style, which is rather interesting. So I've always wanted to write in some form, and this has been a nice little challenge for me, so I really enjoy it.
Okay, I am Valerie. I am an artist and also a creator on Dorian. I have different stories of my own, and I'm also the artist behind one of our top performing stories right now, which is Flashfic. I came from a long story of webcomics. I worked in webcomics for like 6 years, but what I find most interesting about games is that like in one linear story you have to choose one story to go for, and it's just that. And in interactive you can explore all of the choices, maybe ideas that come to your mind inside the same story, and I find that that also makes people much more happy, because if you're not happy with one way the story could go, you can choose the other one.
Hello, I'm Jess. I'm the VP of Creator Growth at Dorian. I also write /fic, and I've been in the game industry for about 15 years, but I actually originally started as a prose writer. So my soul as a child and teenager was of a novelist, and I found my way into game creation, actually. And now I guess my life's work is helping people make amazing games on Dorian.
Hello, I'm Dan. Nice to meet you all. I joined Dorian after working in theatre for a long time, so my background wasn't in games at all. So I'm on the panel here today, I think, to help talk about how Dorian can help new creators. Also a little bit about the wider gaming industry as well, and how you can get into that industry from completely different fields. It doesn't have to be from, you don't have to go and get a degree in gaming particularly. There are other routes and other avenues into the industry which you can pursue. So I'm happy to help with that.
Based on your experience, Dan, what do you think games offer to players, to fans, that other mediums that you worked on could not? Because you have a dramatic change, sort of. I know that you still do theater, but maybe can you share some more insights from your story?
Yeah, I think what's cool about it is with games, it's always active, right? And I think people forget that sometimes when they're looking at moving one medium into another, especially things like films and novels into games, is that you have to think about what the player is actually doing. And you're inviting the player into a world that you've created, which is really cool. And I find that really fun going from theatre into games. Actually, the reason why I got into games in the first place is because a play of mine was picked up by a games producer, and we nearly turned it into a video game, and COVID basically stopped that from happening, unfortunately. But it got me involved as well. What was really nice about it is that I could turn the worlds that I was creating as a playwright into something that was interactable. Thank you. Enabling players to actually get involved in that and explore stories sort of alongside the world that I'd helped to set up. So that was a huge appeal to me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about transmedia franchises. Jess, question to you. You used to work on some of the biggest franchises in the world, translating them into games. What makes a story or a franchise enjoyable across different mediums, and what was your process, what was your experience that the audience can benefit from?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of working on a Game of Thrones video game, and actually I'm not sure how many Game of Thrones fans there are in the audience right now. I feel like it was a very thoroughly watched, if not well appreciated ending. And I think one of the real joys of interactive is that we do create the ability to customize and personalize your experience. So a lot of us inherited the creator's vision for Game of Thrones that we maybe wouldn't have appreciated and would have chosen a different path through if we got to choose. And a lot of Game of Thrones to me is about relationships, it's about branches and the effects of your choices. You know, if you choose to do this certain thing, maybe your kid is gonna go kill your whole family or something like that. And the fact that interactive allows you to explore those different paths and also the weight of your choices is really the difference I see. You know, what other type of medium can you make you actually experience something like guilt because you made a choice that actually had an effect in the world? Also allowing interactive allows you to explore those parts of the world that like you don't get to see in the show, you don't get to see in the book. You can go experience what it feels like to be a young soldier in the Riverlands, and you know that wasn't on the screen that HBO gave us. So allowing us to actually explore those paths untaken by the original creators. A fun anecdote for you all, when I was working on that game, it was very combat focused, as video games often are. And I really wanted to make a relationship system where you could have betrayal and backstabbing and stuff like that. And we didn't do that in that situation because we didn't have the resources for it. And actually on Dorian, we have a relationship system that you can use with no coding. And like today, I could build that relationship system by myself that a game studio couldn't even build at that time. Yeah.
This is really cool. I'm so proud. So I think I have a question to the panel. What kind of IP would you like to see translated into a game and why? Who wants to start?
Look, this is a safe space for geeks, right? Because I'm going to give you of all places in the world, surely. This is probably the geekiest thing that's ever going to come out of someone's mouth. But as a theatre goer and lover, I really want to see a game about Shakespeare, right? I want to see like an open world, thank you, open world kind of interactive Shakespeare universe where I can go and fight with Banquo on the battlefield as Macbeth, and I can go and explore the fairyland of Midsummer Night's Dream. I kind of want to go and explore these universes and be part of that. And as far as I know, that kind of game doesn't exist, and it baffles me why. Maybe I'm the guy to make it.
It's copyright free, yeah, you can make it. You can do it.
Sorry for the really geeky answer, but yeah.
Like me personally, I really like Mad Max. I don't know. Why? Because like it has all of the post-apocalyptic setting, and I feel like that creating a world with stakes so high, where your survival is constantly on the line, creates like really interesting relationship system, where you are not only like guided by love, but the fact that you have to constantly survive So you're always like the truest self, and that's really cool to explore in relationships.
So you can have a bad ending.
Yes, you can have lots of bad endings, and you can even like choose to be like the villain. Like I really like stories where I can choose to be both the good guy and the bad guy, and I feel like that kind of story would allow me to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna control all of the resources of the water here, okay?
Awesome. What about you?
I feel like my choice is now slightly less chaotic, but I'm kind of a lover of like some slice of life. So maybe sort of an Oran High School Host Club or some sort of different anime, like I can live in the anime and make different choices in the main character. Because sometimes you watch like a show and you're like, that's a stupid decision. Why on earth would you do such a thing? And I want to make the correct one. So
can you give an example when you felt that?
Honestly, all the time. But okay, let's see. You know, often in horror films as well, when you watch them and you're like, why are you climbing up the stairs when the door's wide open? Leave, get out. Those are the kind of decisions that I want to be making. And then I'd also like to see if making that decision actually does change what would happen, or if it's just, you know, inevitable that you're going to get got.
Awesome. Baby?
I'm not gonna lie, Scooby-Doo. Because I think it'd be really cool to like hunt down all the monsters. But then, what if it was a monster, like, and you've solved all these clues thinking it's like a human and then it's not? That happens in the first movie, the Spooky Island movie, and then they don't do that again. And I want to see that. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen Scooby-Doo. But I think it'd be cool, because like, you never really get to see them be like teenagers, and that's they are. They go to cool school high and everything. So getting to like go to school and then having to balance homework and then solving mysteries, I think that'd be kind of cool.
I agree, thank you. So, since you moved to games, what are the examples of fans appreciating interactive experiences that you built or participated in building? Do you have any examples like that you could not do in linear?
Well, I think if you're producing a linear piece of narrative, be that theatre or film or a novel, it's difficult to get that sort of fan interaction during the development process. Whereas with games, I mean, I work for Supermassive Games, and we listen to fan feedback all the time. People think that their comments they put on Twitter or Reddit and stuff don't get read. No, they do, and that's not always a good thing. But you know, we listen to feedback. We do player testing. Like that's a big part of the process, and it's very, very important to us. We want to make games that fans love, and often the things that fans love are the things that correlate with what we love as well. We might not be able to do everything that fans want because of scope and budget and stuff like that, but do tell us. I mean, there's no need to kind of be really negative about stuff, but we listen to feedback. We want to make games that fans love, so get involved in that process. Get involved in playtesting, make comments on things, tell us what you want, what you like, what you don't like, be constructive about it, because game developers do listen. It's our job to.
I think that we have some slides here for the impact, right? I mean, are we going to share some of this stuff? I have a royal red slide that I could share about. So I made a fantasy game in the last year where it was originally planned as a novel, as a linear novel, and I wanted it to be like a book talk-esque experience. And I originally planned this guy on the left side to be the main love interest because he was a shadow daddy, which if anyone reads book talk stuff, that's what it all is. And I thought that would be like all that people cared about. And then I decided to make it into a game, and I added some additional love interests here. You can see these other two guys. And it was really fascinating for me because I thought my instincts were so good. I was like, oh, I know who they're gonna want to romance. And I was wrong. You can see here that there are so many people who were commenting about the other two. They were like absolutely loving these two other characters, and I Are you waving for me?
It's me. It's
Oh.
me. It's me who likes the other one.
Yeah. Julia likes Felix, the blonde here.
Shade is the best.
Who is not a K-pop reference. I have found out about Felix from Stray Kids after making this game, but it is a very nice reference. But yeah, so I think that it's really important to be able to test your ideas. Like often you don't even know what your blind spots are as a creator, and so being able to see what they actually care about, both in the comments and the analytics, is really how you start to learn about yourself as a creator. Like I genuinely would never have known this if I had written that novel. I would have thought I made the right choice and I would have been wrong.
Okay, so for me, a lot of like the good feedback that I received was on the like replayability of the games. I often have choices, for example, in my cowboy game, where you can choose who to spend time with. And I've had lots of like positive feedback on people being like, oh, I can play this game and like go replay it from the start and play a completely different episodes. And as I said before, that is something that with linear story you can't do. Another thing that I really got like good feedback on, but also people being really scared about it, it's like, as I said before, I like the idea that you can like play as the bad or the good guy, and I often have choices where you can choose to be that, just to be the villain or be the good guy, and people really appreciated that. And
You should be the villain. You should always be the villain.
yeah, you should always be the villain. You should always choose violence. And some of them also unlock maybe characters that you don't see in the other round, and you only find out if you play that one. And also, as you see, like in the second slide, I have like choices where like you like turn on your people and turn on your lover, which really impact the plot a lot. But I found that that's what my players really appreciated.
Amazing. I know you also have an example, right?
Yes, so a lot of well, this is our first game, which is still up at the moment, and we had our first initial choice with obviously being to choose your pronouns, choose your character, so to speak. So I think that went down quite well. We had a lot of people that talked to us and put in the comments about how they appreciated that there wasn't just one character that you chose, that there wasn't just one technical path that you had to go down, but you could have different characters to portray, you know, how you present yourself in everyday life. So that went down really well, we like that. We also have a sort of big choice a little later on where you have to choose who you're going to kiss, because that's serious, of course. And so you're at a party and you have the choice to choose either your female son of love interest or male love interest, and obviously then your path kind of diverts. So we like to have a little bit of, do a difference there, you know, let people have a little bit of a choice. But those went down really well. We also have a character who people are not a particular fan of, which they do not mince their words about. So it's always nice to hear that the writing that you're doing and the character that you're drawing is coming across exactly how you want them to, which is bad.
I think it's really cool, like, to point out in this slide that they actually painted different full screen images based off of your gender choice in that pronoun. That's an extra degree of care that a lot of people don't put into their games. So it's amazing that you can actually like change the way that the players get to see themselves in the game as well. And those examples are there on the screen.
So in most of the games on Dorian and outside of Dorian, player plays as themselves, right? They're inserted in the middle of the universe, story, battle, whatever this is. What are some of the examples of how you used the fact that players are much more invested by playing as themselves to help you build your fandom? Did you see that this investment translated into your community building compared to other mediums when they're not main characters, they just have to watch someone else doing all stuff with them and they have no say? Do you have any examples of that then?
No. It's the short answer. Not especially, not that I can talk about particularly, but it is quite a tricky thing to balance as a dev, especially involved in narrative, because player agency is so important. If you're creating an RPG, what you're trying to do is create a blank slate as much as possible for the player to put themselves into. And quite often you'll see examples where people have a kind of nice playthrough of something, and they do it again, they sort of do a nasty playthrough, right? So you're sort of giving them options of what sort of playstyle you want. And then when you're trying to put players in a position of role-playing, it's a little bit different. In a lot of the narrative games I see massive makes, you are role-playing as a bunch of teenagers quite often, and you're on some sort of adventure that leads to everyone dying, essentially. And so you've got to try and find ways to tap into characteristics quite quickly in order for the player to pick up on those things, and therefore make choices that they think are natural to that particular player and not just natural to themselves as an individual, I suppose. So it's always a bit of a balancing act for me.
I can say it's undeniable that when you are the main character, you take things very personally, and in this case, they take one of our characters' chess very personally. Valerie, you want to speak on what does it feel like as a artist to see your character adapted this way?
Can you just so that everyone understands, can you please explain what's going on here?
Yeah, so Valerie and I actually, it's kind of fun. We made this game, it's called Slashfic. It's a game where you date slasher villains. Actually, if you want to understand how easy it is to make a game, this game was born last MCM when Valerie and I were having dinner, and I was like, I have the most unhinged idea for a game ever, and I also think maybe I'll get arrested if I make it. And Valerie was like,
I was into the Dead by Daylight fandom for far too long to know that this was gonna work. I was like, there are a bunch of people waiting for this. Please let me in. Let me be the artist. I'll do it for free. We can rev share, please.
And we realized that there was a Friday the 13th in September, so within a matter of months, we launched our game, and this is one of the dateable love interests. He does carry a chainsaw, and his name is Leather, and he's totally not a reference to anything. It's not a reference to anything. He's a totally original character. And yeah, Valerie, what does it feel like to see all of these renditions from the fans? So these are all examples of fan art that has been made of this character.
In just weeks since the launch of the first episode.
I think that what an artist, but really a creator, like really wants in the end is to have feedback from people, and like I think there is no greater feedback of appreciation than receiving like fan work. It's amazing to see that like people put time into drawing their own versions and also interpretations, because like you get to see them with their own. Most times they also draw them with their own character, like they being the MC, they insert themselves and like. Create also their own stories around what you create, and that's amazing. We also have like one of the creators write a whole album.
Yeah, there's a fan who's actually writing a full music album about this game right now. And it kind of slaps. It's like really good.
Do you have examples of fandom growing faster because they play themselves?
I think personally, in terms of like our game, it's difficult to see unless people comment that they're enjoying this choice or they like this path. But I do appreciate myself having like a self-insert, because otherwise why am I playing the game? I'm not playing as someone else. Like, this is the choice that I'm making. So I do appreciate that when we write and we create our own, the choices that you make have real life consequences. So everything in the game feels real, because it's you that's playing it, you that's making those decisions, and then those decisions actually do come to fruition, rather than just sort of, I made this choice and nothing happened. Like, there's actual real truth behind what's going on, which makes it feel a little bit more realistic.
Did you see your patterns growing faster because of that, or compared to other platforms where you've been?
Yeah, honestly, you can gain like a following way quicker on Dorian than anything else. Like, like it's from Webtoon, it was really slow, TikTok, all of them, like, it was harder, like, you had to interact with them more, whereas on Dorian, they just, oh, that character's hot, and then they stay. It's really cool, actually, and I really appreciate it, yeah.
And you can like find your niche as well when you're there, so it's quite nice to sort of find that community, especially as you were saying, Julia, that there's a lot of sort of queer and sort of members of the LGBTQ plus community on there, and so you can really like feed into the things that you want to experience, you want to see, and the things that you don't necessarily get a lot of in the media and in games now.
If I can say something, yeah, I think another like amazing thing about the publishing on Dorian, like from the perspective of someone that has like multiple games, is that like people are also very loyal. I have often like people playing a game and then coming to my other games and then leaving a comment to let me know that like they appreciated all of my stories, and this happens a lot of the time, and it makes me happy to know that like you can, it's not like they are loyal to a story, they are loyal to the creator.
I think another fun thing about writing in this medium is that it really allows people to have this sense of like role play and wish fulfillment. So one of the things we see across Dorian games is that if you create a really fun villain and then you give people the opportunity to like embarrass them or like punch them sometimes or things like that, people are so excited about getting to show up a villain because it's all that stuff that they don't get to do in real life. So you'll actually see that people will support you with their money if you give them the chance to really show up a villain. So it's really like an expression of like the stuff that you wish you could do in the real world that you don't get a chance to do. You get to do in interactive. It's great.
You're still doing the live streams, right? You're still doing live streams. Yeah. So the reason why I joined Dorian was initially as a writer, but then I kind of helped Julia and Jess set up the live streaming on the app. And that's a way to garner live feedback on your stories and to play through choices and have fans like enjoy your time as you're streaming. So definitely if you want to sort of convert some of your stuff into Dorian games, that's a really good way to get player feedback as well.
Thank you. Dan, what are the examples of any story in any linear format that you thought the ending could be better, and then how did you translate this dissatisfaction of the ending in your work as a narrative designer now? Can we talk a bit about endings, because endings are often not satisfying, right? Especially if you have no influence.
Yeah, I mean what's tricky about getting the right ending, I suppose, is that when you start branching in a video game, things can go out of scope very, very quickly, right? You keep branching out. And therefore finding a satisfactory ending to each of those branches can seem a bit debilitating as a storyteller, particularly because with linear stories, you've got an idea of your perfect kind of ending. You go from A to B, and you can do the whole save the cat routine or whatever you want to do for your narrative structure, and you're looking at the ideal ending. As soon as you start branching, you're kind of compromising on those endings to an extent. So they're going to feel slightly dissatisfactory, or at least, you know, potentially will do. So it's our job, of people involved in narrative, to try and make those endings feel significant, even though they're one of many. I mean, in some of the supermassive titles, there are hundreds of potential endings, and it's very difficult to make each one of those feel significant and impactful. But that's our job to do that, and it's quite tricky, yeah.
I would say something like Game of Thrones. Like, I thought a lot about the ending of Game of Thrones and why it was so unsatisfactory. And I think that, you know, a lot of stuff is about where narrative trajectories are taking you, and if you don't feel like you're kind of taking those through that natural endpoint and that satisfying endpoint, I think it's really interesting that a lot of the stuff that we can do with interactive is create that more tethered to the player's identity and like what their wish fulfillment is. So asking like, what is the thing that I want for my character? And it's less about the world, it's more about this kind of journey that my character is going on. And so that allows you to create some of those branches a little more. Like, I wish that I could go rewrite Daenerys' arc of Game of Thrones so badly, because that's the character I identify with the most, but which like don't analyze that too much. Jon Snow, I think, also had a very disappointing arc, and so like for me, it's often related to character arcs. And I think in interactive, we have the opportunity to explore those different types of arcs. So, for example, instead of, spoiler alert for everyone who's not watched Game of Thrones, but like instead of making Daenerys go evil 100% of the time, like what if we had like different shades of that? What if there were different choices she could make in that final arc? I think that immediately becomes more interesting, especially if it's reflective of all these choices that led up to that moment.
I actually have two examples. One referring to the fact that one thing that Dorian allows you to do and also interactive gaming is changing the game depending on how the people react to it and also how the story develops, because most time you start with an idea and as you write something else comes alive. And one is How I Met Your Mother. I know the ending made many people like unhappy because it was actually like filmed before the whole story started, so they reached a point at the end where it was no longer fitting to the characters and they still went with it and it went really awry. And I think that's something that like interactive gaming allows you to prevent, because you can see in real time what kind of like what couple like players ship or what they want from the story. And the other one, which refers to like gaming, and it's also something that can be solved to player feedback. It's like Mass Effect. The first one had a lot of flashback over the ending because like you had all of this interactive story and then the ending was reduced to like 3 choices, which ignored completely all of the progress you had made in the game before. And that is something that can teach you a lot about how to make interactive games, and be wary though that if you make choices inside the story, even how small they are, people are gonna want to see the outcome at the end. Even if just say you have saved a character, you want to see him maybe reappear in the ending, or don't appear if you haven't saved him, and that like changes a lot of fan responses.
And that's why it's so important to think about high replay value. So when you're designing a game and it has multiple endings, you've got to make sure that if they go all the way back to the beginning, that they will have a different experience, right? It's not reduced to just one choice at the end. Can you talk about the examples of endings that were not satisfying for you and how you're designing now to make it different in your games?
So for us, a lot of the things that we have issues with endings are that they end abruptly. So we have a lot of shows that we have enjoyed that then are cancelled with like an arc that needs to be finished, and these things don't make any sense. So we're trying to work on using all of your choices to then pinpoint areas that drop into particular arcs so that there's nothing left unfinished and things always come back around, so that then when we write our full ending, everything seems to be tied up nicely, or at least not just thrown to the wind somewhere. But I think as well another ending that was a bit naff was, I think it was the Umbrella Academy. Like people were not a fan of what happens at the end of that. There's a lot of discourse going on about that ending. So it's also important to think about how each character's ending equates to the whole, so that you don't get sort of people being unhappy with particular people and then thinking about that as the entire ending. So it's really important to wrap everything up nicely into a little parcel that's packaged for everyone.
One thing I want to like point out I think is quite cool is if you did want to make a story that did have one ending, you could first make a game with multiple and then see what like the most popular options are, so then you know where to go with like an actual like book or comic or novel or whatever. And I think that's a cool thing that you can use Dorian for, is to like test what works best with the audience you're looking for, you know?
Yeah, on Dorian you get to see all of the choices as the creators and your fans make, so you have all of the analytics for free. You can see literally the breakdown of your fans, and you know your fans really well because of their choices. I guess maybe the last question that I have for you is, what is your advice for people who haven't tried making games yet but want to jump into interactive mediums, and what would you advise them to get them started successfully? Dan, would you like to start?
There's kind of order going on here, haven't we? So I'll go first, yeah. The first day I started as a narrative designer, I was taken into a room and they said, we've employed you not because you can write. So, oh, thanks so much, that's very kind of you. Well done here. They said, we've employed you because you can collaborate with other people, and that's really important. And whenever I see people, I do lots of events where I kind of give advice to people about getting into the gaming industry, and I see amazing CVs and amazing work, but I don't see as often as I should evidence of collaboration. And some of these guys on the panel here are working together on these stories, you know, working with artists and working, you know, with the work that I did on Dorian, we're working with actors, and whatever collaboration you can do to evidence that you can work as part of a team, the better. It's if you want to spend 5 years in your bedroom making a game on your own, do it for sure. But in order to work in the games industry, you have to work with a bunch of people, and you're going to disagree with them all the time. You're going to fight about stuff. But that's good, that's part of the process, and we want to see that you can collaborate and get on with stuff. That's really, really, really important, so evidence that as much as you can.
I'm going to say, don't spend 5 years making a game. Don't do it. I think, you know, speaking as someone who has written several desk drawer novels, one of the best things and biggest pieces of advice I'd give you is get your stuff out there. I mean, you cannot start growing as a creator until you start getting your stuff out there. And also, one of the coolest things about being alive right now is that you can make stuff and get it out there so much faster than you ever have been able to in history. It's so cool. Like, genuinely, like, the fact that we just had this conversation about this game in May, and now it's like got a huge fandom growing about it is so cool. And also this idea was so crazy, and we were just like, let's just do it and see what happens. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And like, you could also make, like, we were just in a workshop this morning where a guy was pitching a dating sim about dating the shampoo in his shower. Like, you guys can make the wildest ideas and turn them into a hit game like tomorrow. And the longer you sit around waiting and thinking about how it has to be perfect, like, you are keeping yourself from getting there.
So I'm going to chip in a little bit because I reminded myself. Also, I think when you collaborate with other people, as you guys have been doing, it helps to validate your own ideas, because sometimes you'll be sat on an idea thinking, God, this is a bit crap and I'm not sure about this and I don't want to put it out into the world. And as soon as you share it with somebody else, actually it can validate that and you start bouncing ideas of each other. So that's really, really crucial. Not only collaborating, but just helping you work through your own creative ideas as well really helps.
Find people who are as unhinged as you are.
Yeah. Someone who's willing to be unhinged with you. But also, like, another advice, which is relating also to what Jess saying, like, I think one of the biggest fears of people putting out their work out there is criticism, but like actually that's what gets you to grow the most. Like, I have rewritten my work based on fan reactions a lot of time, and I don't take that as a failing, because each time it has been better than the previous one. So one advice I would give is be ready to like improve your work and work on it based on fan. Don't expect to like publish something and for it to like be perfect first try.
That's honestly the best advice. Do not be afraid of failing or rejection. It's totally fine. I have been rejected or failed so many times, and I think that it's just something that I expect as part of the experience of doing something, right? Once you're doing, you're definitely gonna make some mistakes or fail sometimes. I will never forget my math teacher at school. She told us, only people who don't do anything make no mistakes. So I definitely internalized it, and that's one of the best advice I can give you. What about you?
I think I just have to say, like, go for it, because, like, I think Jess was saying about desk drawer novels, like, you're going for something and you're just sort of leaving it to sort of collect dust. Don't do that. Give it a go. You know, like we were talking about, now there is so much content and so many people willing to sort of consume the content that you're going to make. You will find a niche. You'll find your like fandom, your crowd. So So just go for whatever you have. And honestly, Dorian, if you're into games, is a great platform to do that because there's so many people there who are willing to sort of just go for whatever you've got for them. And especially when there's so many different kind of art styles there, they are going to completely just lap that up if you've got some nice art on there too. So I think the best bit of advice I can give is just give it a go, see where it goes, and just continue. Like, just sit in what you've got and keep going for it because you'll succeed as long as you keep trying.
Yeah, honestly, agreeing with everyone. Like, sometimes you don't think something will do well. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but they didn't think Spider-Man would be a big deal at all. They thought it would be a silly knockoff character you'd see once, and then people loved him because, you know, anyone could be Spider-Man, like hidden behind the mask. But the thing is, like, you don't know unless you try, so you have to try. You can't be like, oh, this isn't gonna do well, I'm being silly. Like, no, at least try. Like, it doesn't hurt to try. What's the worst that happens? Nothing.
Does it work? And we actually have something for you to get you started really quickly. So earlier this year, a couple of months ago, we announced our first creator fund. It's basically us helping you fund your new games. We already went through the first cohort of the creator fund. We had phenomenal judges who are very much interested in transmedia, like Marina Mello from BBC Studios, Ryan Kaufman, who used to be a narrative director at Telltale Games. And we've got an announcement that we are starting, so the first round of Dorian Legends recognized and funded 23 creator teams, including this team right here. So we
And
have...
Valerie.
And Valerie, correct, yes. We've got a growing number of Dorian Legends who will then unlock more grants as they go on. But we would like to announce that we are opening up the next cohort of Dorian Legends, and you can get started as soon as in 2 weeks when we open the next pitch battle for your games. And you can get early bird benefits if you submit your first episode by December 3. It's really easy to do, and Jess will share how you can get started.
Yeah, so right now we do have a booth that's open. It's N2068. You can see it right here. We actually have a pitch contest at our booth. So if you come and pitch us at the booth, you have the opportunity to make or to get 500 pounds to make your dating sim. You can have a meeting with me. I'm there. I'm hanging out at the booth, and I want to talk about all of your dating sims. So come hang out with us. Come participate. Pitch us with your idea. And we will tell you exactly what you need to do to get started. It's so easy. If you've been thinking about doing it, now is absolutely the time to do it. So come see us at our booth. We'd love to chat with you.
Take a picture, and I think we have a couple of minutes for questions if you have any.
Yes.
Hi, so Dorian is very clearly capable of romance dating sims in the form of visual novels as the main version of that concept. How capable would it be of potentially, in terms of design, for something maybe a bit closer to some of the pioneers of the dating sim genre, something a bit more simulator? Is it capable of adapting to different types of dating sim, or is it just visual novels predominantly?
Would you like to take this?
Are you more interested in things like a relationship system or something like that?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I could throw out names, but I don't know if anyone knows PC 98 games.
Yeah, so we do have we have a very robust choice memory system that can handle it handles relationship systems, We have a mechanic in our game, for example, that has like a permadeath if you kill all the camp counselors. You can progress your relationships, you can branch the story based off of your relationships, you can unlock bonus content, the kind of thing you would see in Obey Me, for example. Like, we have a lot of the same functionality that you have there. Yeah.
And also we are very active, fast team. We are constantly adding new features. So whatever fans and creators request, we try to put it in our roadmap. But yes, it's not just simple visual novel choice based. You can add more mechanics, and they're still very easy to use.
I can tell you more at the booth if you want to learn more.
I might head along, thank you.
Any more questions?
We have one.
Hello there. I'm very new to this world, so most of the things you're talking about, I don't know what they are, but I am a parent of a teenager. Really interesting things. I wondered if you could explain to me what a dating sim actually is.
It's basically a game where the gameplay is around progressing your relationship. So usually it's going to require some sort of plot problem in the world, and then you solve that problem through the romancing and progression of relationships. So to give you an example, our game Fic has a story where you are at a summer camp. Of course, someone uses a creepy book to summon some creepy spirits, and to save your friends, you have to romance these spirits so that they won't, kill all the camp counselors. Yeah.
It's a good question, I think, right? And there's a lot of very codified, almost literally, language with games, right? And sometimes it's our job to help demystify that, so it's a good question.
Obviously, as a parent in these kind of venues, you just want to make sure that you understand what things your children are involved in. So thank you for explaining.
Thank you for your question. Any more questions?
Hi guys, I was just wondering, you might have already answered this, but how do you stay motivated to bring projects that you're into, pretty much?
How do you stay motivated?
I can say personally, if you don't publish your episode, people will DM you. Yeah. And also knowing, I have a fan who streams my game every single release day, and knowing that your fans really are waiting, and it makes you feel very seen and kind of witnessed by the fans. So that's the best motivation I have.
Yeah, I also, fun interactions helps a lot. I with my other game, the one about pirates, I took about a month break because I needed rest. And I had people sometimes coming in the comments being like, oh, I miss Mason, which is the romance of the game. And I was just them coming in the month being like, when does it come back?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely fan interactions help. And as well, I think for teams, it's kind of helpful. You have each other to motivate you to get your ideas out, and also to work on those ideas and flesh them out. So working together helps, and having people love what you're making also helps. It's not bad part at all. So yeah, it's really enjoyable to hear what everyone says, and that keeps you kind of going for it. You want to entertain them as they're asking for.
I would like to add, you need to create some social structures, social dependencies, just maybe a small team with your friend or co-worker. We can help you create some social pressure. If you collaborate with our team, we can create some structure for you. Because I know for my work, whatever I do, I know that I have social dependencies and people who depend on my work. So you need some social dependencies, and it's healthy, even if you feel down about yourself, you feel like you're not doing a good job, you need someone who can hype you up next to you, or even ask questions to keep you, basically create some at least small social dependencies and collaborations around your work. It really helps.
Basically, we peer pressure you into upping yourself up.
Any more questions? Thank you so much for being a great audience. I hope you enjoyed, and welcome to our booth. We will talk more if you have questions. Thank you.